everybody. Welcome to the Crazy Ralph podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm joined with...
Your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete.
Couldn't be happier to be chatting some Friday today. We're into the summer months, so it's like it just feels right.
Already.
I know. I know. We are like halfway through a year already. That just feels like it started. It's pretty crazy. So we are going to be talking today about something that really sucks in the world of Friday the 13th, and that is the Higgins Haven house, which, as we all know as Friday the 13th fans, or maybe you don't, because, some people just watch the movies and that's it. Well, the house burned down. And, the part 3 is a very, very polarizing film, as we've said in the past, but it was very crucial to the storyline. This is where Jason got his mask. This is where, the modern day icon that is known as Jason was born. And Friday 13th was very, very Friday 13th Part 3, sorry, was very instrumental in what we know now, what all the Halloween costumes, all the, all the just imagery that we associate with Friday the 13th. Had part 3 not happened, question, would we have if the decision to put a mask on him, a hockey mask, didn't come in part 3, would we have the franchise that we do? Would we have the Halloween costumes that we do, the imagery, the icon status, all that? And I'm not trying to tie that all into this location, but this is why this movie is very sentimental for a lot of people. It just seemed like a place that you wanted to go to. It seemed like a location that made sense to hang out with your friends. It had a warm feel to it. It was shot pretty well. I mean, I think you could have definitely used a few more teenage scenes, or not campers, just like more scenes inside and in and around that site with the cast, just to kind of humanize them a little bit more. But that wasn't the way back in the 80s, so you can hardly blame the directors or the filmmakers. But Friday the 13th Part 3 was a very, very special film for me. It's one of my favorites. And, as someone who hasn't actively gone to too many locations over the years, being in Canada, I feel like I'm far away from a lot of them. I I did go to the first part 1, but locations are always something that I've been passionate about. I feel like a great horror film in a poor location is a poor horror film. If the setting doesn't speak to me, that movie's rewatchability is not there. And
Totally.
some examples that come to mind are like Return of the Living Dead. Like I love, yeah, I know I'm I'm speaking to you right now, but
Favorite movie of
that's,
all time.
yeah, there you go. I mean, that's an example right there. And some of the Friday the 13th films are like that, and some aren't. Friday the 13th Part 3 was, as you had said brilliantly one time, Uncle Pete, a little bit brown, setting wise. It was a little bit brown, but it still had its charm. And at the heart of that is, their house, that house where Shelley was juggling his oranges and unfortunately that, well, it's kind of fortunate in the sense that while that ranch is not impossible to get to, it is very difficult to get to because, you still have to ask the right people and know the right people, as we learned from Scott on tape when he was on the show. That location is doable. It can be gotten to. A fan could charm their way in legally to see it, but it's not there. And the reason why is because in 2006, the house burnt to the ground. and um and it burnt to the ground. Like it there's a bit of the fireplace, which is kind of ironic because that's where the fire started, and it's pretty sad. So just kind of want to go over this. This is because there's some lore to this. There is some controversy to this, and there's some mystery to this, which kind of, I guess, plays into the Friday the 13th world a little bit, so bottom line is that the people that were responsible for burning down the Higgins Haven house from Friday the 13th Part 3 were reportedly a group of teenagers, or slash fans. We don't really know. They entered the property and basically we're trespassing because they weren't given permission to get in. And it's funny because we learned from having Scott on tape on our show that barn where it is and the house was right beside it is deep into the property. So it's not like they just stumbled upon it. So you'd have to think that they were kind of fans. And what supposedly happened was they lit a fire in the fireplace. Again, let's go with the fact that they're a fan right now. And, the fireplace wasn't functional. There's an argument to that the fact that it was functional, but it was at the time there was boards in it to prevent it from being used, and that wasn't noticed by the trespassers. But some people just say no, it just flat out wasn't a functional fireplace. Regardless, they lit a fire that could not be put out. The extended to the roof and then just basically burned to the ground. I'm going to get into some of the details, some of the theories, but Uncle Pete, that's what I've got so far.
Yeah, it just like it kind of sucks. Like you're a fan, and like from what I read, it seems like they wanted to absolve themselves of responsibility. Like, well, the hearth wasn't working. I was like, you weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to be lighting a fire. Nobody was supposed to be there. It was technically abandoned and shut down. It's like going in. Oh, you guys didn't have electricity. That's why that started. It's
Yeah.
just, I know. It just shows you
So
how shitty people can be.
it's true. And okay, so here's the thing. Like, so it's funny because that's something that you came across. One of the mysteries is that there really hasn't been anybody held accountable to this that we know of. So, okay, so what happened? And there's speculation and rumors. One of the rumors is basically, or not one of the rumors. One of the stories is that, again, trespassers came and it was deemed an accident and nothing came of it. The other thing was that it was arson, and that what happened was that now this was, you got to remember, 2006 was before social media. Now, if this were to happen now, this would be all over the place and there'd be like a lynch mob after these people. And but 2006, it's hard to believe, but we were just like, www dot, Friday the 13th and hoping that we'd
Mhm.
pull something up, right? So there wasn't a lot of information made available, and a lot of the court, if there was a court case for this, it's not available. And I find that kind of hard to believe. So I'm kind of putting a call out to anybody that if they know anything about this trial or court appearance, if you heard anything about it in the last little while that is substantial and backed in facts, I would love to hear it. But there really isn't anything. That's kind of one of the stories out there, is that there's no trace of any kind of court case for this
Mhm.
happening. um the funny thing is that the person that did it, or that supposedly did it, there was a picture of it burning, and it was
Saw it.
online. And this used to be, now again, this was in like message boards back in the mid 2000s. So it wasn't like, again, on social media and making its rounds and stuff. So it was on a message board. I remember seeing this. And one of the things that's speculated by that is that they posted it and were kind of laughing about it. Now, I don't remember that. I can't
No.
speak to that, but they were kind of like joking about it, and it infuriated the fan base, obviously. And one of the stories I heard was, at the time, was that this was a person who had deep pockets, or parents with deep pockets, and everything kind of got, you know, just swept under the rug. Which, I can't say that that's the truth, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense, in the sense that there's so little known about this. And like, and I know this is a passionate fan base that people have been digging. And that kind of makes a little sense. An arrogant person kind of like, posting it, laughing about it, then it gets swept under the rug. No names are ever divulged. Like, when does that happen nowadays? Like, that just doesn't happen. So I don't
And
know.
I was kind of, there's very little information. When you told me about the topic, I looked it up. I was like, there's surprisingly very little information about the fire, and most important, the aftermath. Like you're saying, I really
Yeah.
couldn't find much information about the aftermath, about either people reporting on it, people making videos about it. Cause like this was right in that window where like YouTube was still starting out and everything. So there really was nobody
Yeah.
posting on Instagram or X or anything about this is how I feel about this. There's just like surprisingly like very little information on what happened after the fire. It's that one image you see the fire in some of the windows and stuff, and like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I understand the whole internet, was a little bit more in its infancy and stuff like
Mhm.
that, but we're not talking like, the advent of electricity times. Like, I find it weird that there's so little known, and that there's been so little dug up. And I'm not telling someone to go and dig up this case, but if anybody out there
You
is
know something.
willing to, and then come on this show and we could talk about it, I would absolutely adore that.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's really annoying that, someone would burn this down. And like I said, I'm not going to say that it's the right it's what happened, but it's the prevailing theory, is that, like, it was someone with money, and it all kind of just worked out. It was just a dead property anyway, and not too much stakes were involved, so we kind of let it go, which is, you know maddening, right? Like, it's
Mhm.
just that I really hope that that's not the case. I do remember years ago seeing the picture of the house burning. I don't know, is it available? Did you come across that
I saw it
picture?
on an old Friday the 13th like message board on like Reddit. There was a
Yeah,
photo.
okay, so I'm gonna post it here. But I'll say this, like, I saw this years and years and years ago, and there was this outrage, a whole bunch of fans just really wanting to find out who did it, and find the person. Um, which we're not, like, we're not trying to start a headhunt here, but, like, it would be kind of an interesting some interesting closure for some fans to figure it out. And it kind of, it's like, it adds lore, right? I use
And
that
how do we
word.
not have any name? Like just like
I know.
granted it was only 20 years ago there were still message boards and there was the internet, yeah, but there was still communication, cell phones, everything. There was so much information
Yeah.
to pass. How do we nobody ever got a name?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, who was protecting this person? Like, because yeah, I'm glad you kind of, like, hammered on that as well, because I do think it's ridiculous. Like, and even now, to look it up, there's so much information out there. You could find out information on yourself, and you from, like, that time frame, like, where you were, and I just find it really ridiculous, and frustrating. Yeah, no, I'm I'm glad you said that. So on the property of this, was this house, the famous barn, obviously, the dock, and then the man-made lake. And it was just like whole compact Friday the 13th kit, right? If you want to visit locations, I'm not saying again you could just go and get it done, but it was just perfect. Like, it wasn't like, they shot a house here and then like, 37 miles up north they shot this and that. It was all right there, man. It was just it was beautiful and it's gone. And that's the sad part. That's the sad part when these things happen. And, fires tend to happen to a lot of film sets eh, over the years. I don't know why that is, why there's a tendency for sets to build down, but burn down. But, yeah. Anyways, that being said, fan uproar has always been, you know, kind of muted, except for the extreme fan, like, but you can't carry it on forever. But like I said, I would like to know some of the, someone out there who does know something. If you want to come forward, that'd be fantastic. And as you know, Uncle P, we kind of touched on this, but, the blueprints for this place
Hmm.
are, in safe hands, and there's been talks to rebuild it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
mean,
think around, excuse me, I think they were 2021 or 2020. Yeah, 2021. And that's the last we heard about it. I just heard that in 2020 was the last news we have. There were plans to rebuild it. And I'm going to hit you with this riddle. So let's say they do rebuild it. We'll play devil's advocate now. And apparently they wanted to rebuild it to be an exact replica. Because, like you said, they got the blueprints. They want the same paint scheme. So let's say they do rebuild it and it is an exact replica. So I'm going to hit you with this. Is it still the house? Is it still Higgins Haven? Even though it's completely burnt down. So they're starting from, I mean, this is kind of like a ship of Theseus, like paradox. Like,
yeah,
is it the same house if they use pieces of it or whatnot? Or is it just a replica?
that is a
I
tough
mean, I
question.
don't have a full answer because it's on the lot. It's a full replica, but
So,
it's like, I don't know.
yeah, okay, so here's how I kind of talk this out, and it's a great question. Um And I do wanna kind of come back to the fact that, yes, they've been talking about rebuilding it for a long time, but that was a long time ago. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's gonna happen, but that's anyways. So, here's the thing, you build it and it's an exact replica, exact paint. I think it's more museum status,
Yep. Okay.
and it's something that you can visit and kind of but you know, what you love about that location, if it's Friday the 13th part 3, what you love about that didn't happen in there. You know what I mean? They didn't have cameras in this place. They didn't have the actors blocking and shooting their scenes in this place. There wasn't camaraderie built in this place. There wasn't memories built in this place. What you have is a memory of this place, a museum of this place. So, in many ways, that's enough. That's enough to satisfy you, if you go to see it and that's cool because it's done to scale. That's the fact. Like, that's the a crucial fact, sorry, where it's done to scale and it's identical. It's not like a modified version, so that's where it's like, there's more, it's more enticing that way. It's a tough question. At the end of the day, I would say if I went there, I'd be like, feel like I'm visiting a replica museum,
Hmm.
but I
No,
wouldn't,
100%.
I wouldn't feel like I was actually in the place, the spiral where
Like, it's a replica. It's like we
Shelley's.
both have a lot of Jason. Remember, I have a lot of replica masks. It's not
Yeah.
a movie used mask. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
cool to have a movie. Or it's
Yeah,
like you said,
exactly.
it's like going to museum. Like, let's say did it a 100% replica of Reagan's room from The Exorcist. Would
Mhm.
I want to walk in and be like, oh man, it's pretty cool. This is what it this is what it looked like.
Yeah,
But I'm not standing in the room where the stuff happened. So
exactly.
I want to stand in a room where I know it was like for part 4, for example. I want to stand in a room where Ted White explodes through that door. I want to
Yeah,
stand in
yeah,
that room.
yeah.
I want to be in the barn on and swing on that rope where that girl swung on the rope. where it stands today. A
Yeah.
replica, it's like going to like you said, I think you nailed it saying it's like going to a museum and like or a wax figure. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I think actually you nailed it when you said, like, you can have a replica Jason mask and it could be exactly, but it wasn't used in the movie. So you have a replica and it's awesome and it's perfect. And your friends will be like, "Ooh, cool." But it wasn't worn by Kane Hodder. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
is what it is. And or CJ Graham or whatever. And I think that would be the same thing here. It just it's
So is it
like I
worth
said.
it to rebuild it then? Is it worth it to rebuild? Yeah, I mean, they're gonna go. Apparently, we have to go through the process of building an entire two-story home
Mhm.
with a deck and everything. Is it worth it to do all that just for a replica?
Again, good question. I would say that if you're going to keep it closed off to the public, then no. What are you doing it for? Like, unless you own that property and you're just a fan of that house structure, then that's fine. Go for it. If you're opening it up, if you decide, hey, you know what? Look at what, Crystal Lake Tours is doing with part one. That's pretty awesome. If you want to recreate that for part three, which I think is a fantastic business idea, because I don't know what that piece of land is doing these days, but if
Hmm.
you want to create that and make it a tourist attraction for Friday the 13th fans, then you're great. You're off to the races. Um, but if not, then it's a little bit of, you know, why?
No,
Unless you're a friend.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I mean, it's an interesting story. It's a sad story. It's a sad story because there's just no closure for a fan, you know? We wanted
I
to.
think that's the part that sits with me. Like, and I don't. We don't have an answer. If I
Yeah.
if I knew it was some guy named Fred Krueger who did it because he was a big Freddy fan and blah 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 blah. Okay, at least it's that whole not knowing, and like someone is
Yeah.
sitting out there right now drinking their morning coffee on a Saturday or beer on a Saturday afternoon. Like they
Yeah.
may come across this podcast thinking, "Yeah, I'm the son of a bitch. You burnt that down. I got away with
Yeah,
it."
yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, yeah, it's tricky. I would definitely love to know who it was. But I don't know what I would do with that information. Obviously, I would just be like, "Oh, that's what he looks like." Okay, fine.
Yeah,
That's usually good enough. It's like the person that cuts you off on the highway, right? You just want to speed up to see who the hell, what do they look like? But
yeah.
it gives you
And
no
then that's it.
closure.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what an asshole looks
Yeah,
like, and just drive
yeah,
away.
exactly. I guess it does give you some closure. It gives you closure, but it doesn't really change your world, right?
Yeah,
But that's basically what it's more curiosity. And well, anyways, we'll see if anybody has more information on this case. I would love to talk to you about it and we can, maybe follow up this interview
yeah,
or
totally.
the interview in this video and we can get to the bottom of the Friday the 13th Higgins Haven fire. Maybe that's something that this podcast is going to have to explore. But, for now, I think we've kind of covered all we can. It's a shame. It's a story in the
I
world
do
of
want to
Friday the
tag.
13th. Oh, yeah.
I do want to tag one thing, Jay. So when I was doing the research for this, because um there's other issues with Friday the 13th locations. Like you got the one family that we're talking about closed up. Nope, you can't see the
Yeah.
house. It's all home. So a lot of locations are hard to get to, hard to see. But it kind of proves one thing: like the look, Jason survives, the locations don't. But Jason still survives, even though you can burn down his locations, you can change his lake. Jason will still survive, and we're still going to be here talking about him.
And what a better way to end a podcast than that. So, with that, thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next podcast. I'm Jason. He's Uncle Pete. See you later.